Welcome to the Millionaire Podcast. Man, my name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Todd Millionaire. Thank you guys all for tuning in. The purpose of this podcast is to share the stories of successful African-American business owners and investors. We want people to know that successful billionaires do exist. And then we also want people to know that business and investing are the true keys to financial success and generational wealth. With me is my amazing co-host, Miss Michelle Welch, all the way from Florida. How you doing?
I am blessed. I'm just happy to be here today.
Happy to be here. You guys are definitely in for a treat. We're continuing to grow this show, and we're continuing to do amazing things. And in my opinion, I think a large influence on this show is our guest today, Dr. Dennis Kimbro. He is the author of Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice. He was born December 29th, 1950 in Jersey City, New Jersey. In 1972, he received his BA and MA degrees from the University of Oklahoma. He later earned his PhD in political science at Northwestern University, researching wealth and poverty in underdeveloped countries. And he's also a professor at the Clark Atlanta University here in Atlanta, Georgia. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, my brother.
Man, it's amazing to
Michelle.
have you here. Mm-hmm. So we always start our show with asking our guests to tell us a little bit more about themselves.
Well, basically, I'm an open book. You said it all. Born in Jersey City. Didn't go back to Jersey since my junior year in college. And I was the first African American after I got my degree from Oklahoma University. Went down to Dallas, Texas to work. I was the first African American in the rotational program for Texas Instruments. Worked there for about a year and a half, and I told my wife, I said, well, you know, I want to go ahead and get my terminal degree. And we had one daughter and another daughter on the way, and she said, well, let's do it now while the girls are young. And so I went to Northwestern, got my degree, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Arguably, probably the best advice I was given from my committee chair. He said to me, he said, Dennis, don't look at your dissertation as an obligation for your degree. Look at your dissertation as your first book. And my focus at that time, and still is, well, was wealth and poverty among underdeveloped countries. And after I got my degree, I turned to my wife and I said, I know exactly my first book. And she says, what is it? I said, don't want to study poverty, don't want to study countries, just want to study wealth, and particularly African Americans. And arguably another piece of great advice or a gift that I was given, I stumbled upon, when I decided to go ahead and write that book to get the data, I stumbled upon an article in Time magazine that was written back in the 1950s when Martin Luther King was leading the Montgomery bus boycott. And in that article, they said when he led the bus boycott in 1955, there were only 5 African-American millionaires. And I carved out a list. I literally took a piece of legal pad and I wrote down 50 names of black men and women, wealth creators, who I thought were wealth creators at the time. I was going to meet and interview them. And Charles and Michelle, those 5 black millionaires were at the top of the list. And what was arguably remarkable about that, okay, so here I am in my late 20s, early 30s, and 4 of the 5 were still living. And I just, sent a letter out, and I just wanted to, go ahead and get the data, what made them different, what made them unique, and, the rest is history.
Yeah. So you made the pivot. You went to school to study poverty. You decided to study wealth. What was the motivation behind that turn?
That is a great question. Because we look in terms of nation states and we look at political economic development, what would place an individual on the path to success? And what I found out, Charles, those men and women who have won mostly in life have relied mostly on themselves. Okay, in 1897, your most prolific scholar, W.B. Du Bois, wrote a book called The Negro in Business. More than 800 pages and the like. And the interesting aspect about that, he taught at Atlanta University, the same school that I teach right now, and during the summer months, he got on a train and he just took the train along the eastern seaboard from northern Florida all the way up to Boston, and stopped along the way to interview black business owners. Well, you get that book and you read the first 30 pages of that book, there are two profound statements that will really place anybody on the fast track of success. Number one, he said, the man and woman who won't control his or her finances won't control anything else.
Ooh.
So if you don't care about the money in your pocket, now remember he said anything else, okay? So if you don't care about the money in your pocket, what do you care about black on black crime in the community? What do you care about the trend right now, declining college graduation rates in black America, if you don't care about the money in your pocket? And number two, he said, nothing positive will ever occur in a community that fails to circulate its dollars. So when we think of circulating your dollars, I mean, the data is there. No group circulates the dollars more so than East Indians, Arab Americans. The average dollar stays in their community 45 days before leaving. Number two, Asian Americans. The average dollar stays in the Asian community 24 days before leaving. Number three, Jewish Americans. The average dollar stays in the Jewish community 17 to 19 days before leaving. On and on and on and on. The average dollar today stays in the black community 6 hours before leaving. So that's number one. But it wasn't always like that. Mm-hmm. Okay? My mother-in-law, God rest her soul, she was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the same year of the Tulsa riots. All right? And she always told the story and made sure that she passed that story on to, generations in her family. They needed to know the truth. And she tells the story that when she was an infant, because they told her, in 1921, and we know what happened in May of 1921, you had the Tulsa riots, where her father came home in the middle of the day. All right, your father is out working, and your father comes home in the middle of the day. First question, what are you doing home? What's wrong? Blah, blah, blah. So he comes home in the middle of the day, doesn't say anything. Dad, dear, what's wrong? Grab whatever you can. Get whatever you can. Don't carry too much. We got to get out of here. Where are we going? Don't ask questions. Just do what I say. Grab and get. And they lost everything in the process. They lost all their possessions, lost the house, and she shared that story, and that's how they, arrived in Oklahoma City. And I met my wife, beginning of my junior year, and the rest is history. So those two profound statements. So what do we know about 1921 Tulsa, Oklahoma? And all of you listening on the podcast or whatever, I mean, you got to burn this into your subconscious. Those 3,600 square blocks in Tulsa, Oklahoma from like 1918 to 1921. And again, Du Bois said nothing positive will ever occur in a community that fails to circulate its dollars. There were more than 600 black businesses in those 3,600 square blocks. All right, you had what? 21 grocery stores. You had those 3,600 square blocks. You had what? 2 hospitals. You had 3 individuals with airplanes. And you had one of the best school systems in the state of Oklahoma. And when I found out you had a teacher who finished from Northwestern, teaching elementary school kids and the like. So the bottom line, what am I trying to say? The average dollar in 1921, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and those 3,600 square blocks, stayed in that community 18 months to 2 years before leaving.
So I'm curious because I actually went to Black Wall Street about a year ago. I was in Arkansas and I just drove out there. But what I thought they did is they actually rebuilt Black Wall Street after it was burnt down. We never talk about that, though.
Well, you can't rebuild with brick and mortar. Rebuilt with mindset. That's how you build mindset. And look at your race. Look at your heroes. Go back to ancient Egypt. And what did the great pharaohs and what did the great Cleopatras do? They made sure in the home of every African child there was a bust. There was a statue, a little statuette, a little head ceramic bust of all the great Cleopatras and pharaohs at the time. And around every head was a headband. And on that headband was a cobra. And what do we know about the cobra? People feared the cobra. They ran from the cobra. The cobra is omnipotent. The cobra is all powerful. The cobra could take you out of here. And even Moses, when he stood at the feet of Pharaoh and the Lord of heavenly hosts, says, Moses, place down that rod. And the rod turns into a snake, into a serpent. What did Moses do? Well, damn it, Moses ran too. And the Lord of heavenly hosts said, Moses, stop, stand. Go back and pick up the snake. And Moses began to question the heavenly host. You want moi? You want me to pay? How dare you doubt me, Moses? When I say you can do it, you can do it. As soon as he picked up the snake, well, it turned back into his rod. Well, that's a case study for something completely different. But the fact of the matter is, why would the great pharaohs place that cobra on a headband? To get you to protect your mind. Oof. Don't you realize that your mind is the greatest resource? Damn it, you gotta think poverty first before you ever engage in poverty. And poverty doesn't exist. Just like darkness doesn't exist. Here we are in the plug. If I cut the lights out and this room became completely black, there's no such thing as black. There's no such thing as darkness. What is it, Dr. Kimbro? It's the absence of light. Mm-hmm. There's no such thing as disease. Dr. Kimbro, no. Well, what is it? It's the absence of health. Did you hear what I said? It's the absence of health. All right, so here we are in Atlanta, Georgia. You go to CDC, and on a daily basis, the CDC will track what? The top 400 diseases throughout the world. Go to the website, and they list the top 400 diseases right now in the United States as of May 21st, 2022. Well, you go to the World Health Organization on a daily basis, the website will track the top 10,000 diseases across the globe. So you got your two greatest healthcare research, providers, whatever, and the like. And on a daily basis, they track 10,400 diseases 24/7. All right. So I tell my students, well, that's the bad news. Dr. Kimbro, what's the good news? Not one was created by God. Dr. Kimbro, if God didn't create the diseases, who did? You did. What do you mean I did? Well, they tell you right now that 50% of all diseases throughout the world is for that lack of adequate drinking water. Maybe the reason why the Lord blew breath into your lungs is go to India, go to Bangladesh, go to some remote village in Africa and dig a well. Oh, look at your social media, platforms. When Zuckerberg came up with Facebook, when Chad Hurley came up with YouTube, when Reid Hoffman came up with LinkedIn, when Kevin Synstrup came up with Instagram, when Jack Dorsey came up with Twitter, they came up with those social media platforms, for some poor, elementary school child in Johannesburg. Somebody might be motivated to buy her a uniform so she can go to elementary school. Mm-hmm. They came up with those social media platforms for some poor child, like I said, in Bangladesh. Somebody might be motivated, impelled, inspired to dig a well. They did not come up with those social media platforms for you and I to gossip. Mindset is your greatest resource. The average individual gets 4 ideas a year, any one of which, if you had the guts, the courage, the temerity to chase that dream, just might make you financially independent. And the reason why we don't have more black millionaires and the reason why we don't have more millionaires in general right now, you can go, I got my data from, the Census Bureau and the Federal Reserve, and they track that, and you got about 18 million millionaires in the United States. There's a brand new millionaire created every 17 hours. There's a brand new billionaire created every 23 to 24 hours. Well, the reason why they're not more, when you get up to $250,000 and $350,000 a year, people get comfortable at that, man. Any amount of money can be spent. Mm-hmm. But you pulling in, $300,000, $400,000 a year, you can outrun your challenges. You can do that in any amount. But all right, so you got a couple of kids and blah blah. They're in college. You just pay cash for it. Don't have to worry about student loan. Don't have to worry about housing and this, that, and the other. So, I know, and I went in a circuitous way to answer your question, but that's what drove me, and I looked at wealth and I looked at success, and I will go anywhere and any place. And again, like I said, okay, so I put those 5 names at the top of the list. Who were those individuals? Well, number one, it was John Johnson of Ebony magazine. The readers and the viewers out there, and listeners and the viewers out there, you probably don't even know who John Johnson was.
Right.
Ebony magazine, I interviewed him twice. Got on a plane, flew up, had to beg for the airfare, beg for the hotel and lodging. But I don't care how I got it, I did it, and I went up there and got a chance to sit across the desk from him. We talked about wealth, and we talked about leadership and success. Well, who was another one? Right there in Birmingham, Alabama, A.G. Gaston. Threw my wife and kids in the car, went over there, and God bless their soul. It was a summer day, and they waited in the parking lot, and I interviewed him for the better part of 3 hours. And when I interviewed A.G. Gaston, I was beginning to feel the financial strain, because I did this at full time. I would send letters out asking for interviews and stuff like this, and at the time I was a pharmaceutical sales rep. Like I said, I was the first African American for Smith, Klein & French in the rotational program. So my first tour of duty was manufacturing, and then they said, we're going to send you out in the field, sales, marketing, and the like, so you can be well-rounded and blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay. Well, when they sent me out in the field, I was still working. I was working on my book. I was taking vacation days. I was taking sick days to go interview folks. And so I'm working a territory near my house. Now you listen to this, okay? I'm a big bad sales rep, and I'm working a territory near my house. And I said, it's lunchtime. Do I want to go to McDonald's, or do I want to swing by the house and get leftovers? And I said, let me go by the house and get leftovers. And while I was in my house, the phone rings. And I picked up the phone. Who was it? It was John Johnson of Ebony magazine. Not his secretary, not his administrative assistant. He read my letter, personally called me up and said, young man, I'm up. And I was thinking, my God, because there was no answering machine, no call waiting, no caller ID. And when my wife came home, I said, Pat, man, can't believe, you know how many, man, just think how many other phone calls I might have missed. And at that time, I said, I'm going full blast with this. And she said, how long will it take you? I said, girl, you just give me 18 months. I promise you, I'll wrap this puppy up. And wow, 5 years later. But she hung in there, man, God rest her soul. And so I went over there, and A.G. Gaston. Another one, number 3, was right there in Atlanta, T.M. Alexander. Listen, people, who in the world was T.M. Alexander? He was an insurance magnate. He graduates from Morehouse, and his uncle gives him a graduation gift of $100. And he took the $100 and started his insurance business. And what did he do? He insured the cars used in the Montgomery bus boycott. Wow. Spent the better part of a day with him. I flew up to Chicago. S.B. Fuller, who was S.B. Fuller, this guy was the godfather of black entrepreneurship. And I shared his story in my book. As a matter of fact, the first article I wrote for Success Magazine was on S.B. Fuller. So, you know, I'm a Johnny come lately. I never told anybody, hey, what I'm doing is different and unique. What I'm doing is cutting edge and everything, though, you know, some of the information is. But again, I always give praise to those who have gone before. And this is what Du Bois was doing back in the late 1800s. When Du Bois wrote his book in 1897, The Negro in Business, 10 years later, Booker T. Washington wrote his first book and used the exact title, The Negro in Business.
Man, I have so much to ask, because I was curious. A lot of times we think that it was W.E. Du Bois versus Booker T. Washington.
No. Now, you know, I'm not going to say they didn't have words. You know, Du Bois could be a little aloof. You know, Du Bois could be a little affront. I'm not saying he was conceited or narcissistic and the like. I mean, check the brother out, all right? He finished high school at 15. When he was 16 years old, Du Bois was teaching. He was a teacher in the public school system in Nashville, Tennessee. He goes to Harvard to get his degree, first Phi Beta Kappa, first, you know, PhD at Harvard, and Harvard didn't even value his undergraduate degree at Fisk. Harvard made him repeat 2 years. And he said, no problem, I'll do it. So, yeah, I give my props to Dr. Du Bois. I do. But I also give my props to Booker T. Washington. When Booker T. Washington finished Hampton, I mean, for 3 years, he went door to door in the South to raise money for Tuskegee. For 3 years, he did that. Man, and he raised $6 million at the time. So you go into, and I've had a couple of presentations. They brought me back, bless their soul, Carnegie Mellon School of Business. They brought me up there so many times to speak to the MBAs and the like. Soon as you walk, state-of-the-art business school. Soon as you walk into that school, there is a huge picture of Booker T. Washington and Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie is bestowing on him a check for $300,000 to build his school. Do you know what $300,000 was worth at the turn of the century? Imagine the hell that he caught knocking on the doors for people trying to raise money for his school. Just think of that. I mean, that's something that, you know, at the turn of the century, Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called Tipping Point. Folks out there in cyberspace watching this, you need to go get that book. All 300 pages. And what the hell is Gladwell saying in that book? He's saying that any problem. And when Gladwell says any problem, he doesn't care what the problem is. The problem is not, you know, how what the problem actually is. The problem is how you view it and how you see it. So Gladwell is saying any problem. He didn't care if the problem was bloodshot eyes. He didn't problem the problem is shaving bumps. He didn't care if the problem is you couldn't find your father with a roadmap. He said any problem. He didn't care if the problem is irritable bowel syndrome. He didn't care if the problem is you're homeless and you don't know where your next meal is coming from. Gladwell says any problem can be solved if only enough people care. You hear me, Black America? Whatever our problems are, what did Martin Luther King said? Before he died, Dr. King said, any problem that Black America faces right now or will face in the future can be overcome if we just keep walking. That's what he did for George Floyd. He just kept walking. And turned the tide just like that. Just keep walking. Look at some of the nonsense going down in the Black community. If that occurred to any other ethnic group, all right, what do you got? 24, 25 maximum security facilities across the nation, all the way from Attica, New York, the San Quentin, out there in California. And you got one right here in Atlanta, Georgia. You know how many times I've been in there? At one time, the vice warden was a young Black female. And she would walk in among the men without any security. And I would ask her, because it seemed like one time she had my number on speed dial. Dr. Kimbro, you got to come and speak to the men. They'll listen to you. I remember one time she called me up and I was on the way to class. And I said, okay, give me a date and time and I'll come in there and I'll speak. When do you want me to come speak to the men? We want you to come now. I said, girl, I got class. Well, I promise you, Dr. Kimbro, it'll only be an hour. It'll only be an hour. I said, okay, I'll get my TAs to cover for me. But man, I went in there, blah, blah, but that's another story. All right, so you got 25, 26. If you took all the Black men, these are maximum security. I didn't say minimum. I said maximum security. If you took all the Black men that are incarcerated right now in those 25, 26 maximum security facilities, and you confine them to one central location. In other words, take them out of Marion in Ohio. Take them out of, like I said, Attica, New York. Take them out, all of them, and place them in one central location. That one central location right now will be the 12th largest city in this country. Larger than Charlotte, larger than Memphis, larger than Miami and Oakland combined. Now, if you did that to any other ethnic, you couldn't get up down Peachtree Street. You couldn't get up down I-25, 285 right now because they would shut it down. Say, not now, not today, not tomorrow. Damn it, not ever. What do? We don't just another day at the office, brother. Brother, you out mindset. Start where you are with what you have, knowing that what you have is plenty enough. It's plenty enough. It's not your resources, damn it. It is your resourcefulness. That's why everybody loves black culture. That's why everybody okay, so you got Putin over there bombing Ukraine. Why is he bombing Ukraine? Because he said, blah, blah, because Ukraine is democracy? No, because Ukraine is overflowing in Western culture. Go over there and look at the pictures. First of all, everybody your age group, I'm an old fart. I'm 71 years old. Wherever I go, I know I'm going to be one of the oldest. So I'm looking at some young folks right here. And you go to Ukraine, all the young folks over there, they speak English. It's the folks my age who need translators. Folks I can't understand. I don't understand that. Can I speak Russian to you? But all the young folks speak English. Why? Because of your Western culture. Look how they dress. That's why he's bombing it. That's why the Republican Party, some of the Republican Party on the side of Russia, they're scared of you. There's no such thing as overtaking. Overtaking what? Come on, man. It is your resourcefulness. If you want money management, go get a Jewish American. You want somebody to take an existing product, a service, and really innovate it, go get an Asian American. You want craftsmanship? Go get a German American. But if you want somebody to motivate, compel you, inspire you as you are on the way to completing your task and journey, when you don't think that you can, move or go another inch, and you're looking for somebody to lift you up, they turn to you, and particularly black women. And I did a little thing on that. What makes you so strong, black woman? Because when they see us and hear our story, oh my God, they started with nothing, and look at them. Whoa, it is your resourcefulness. It's not your capabilities. It is your belief in your capabilities. Come on, man. What the hell are we doing? You got 195 countries that belong to the UN right now. 195. But in terms of wealth, in terms of the resources, in terms of their money, in terms of the buying power, Black America, you're number 16. It's not the lack of money. It's what the hell you doing with your money. Black women, you are 6% of the population. At one time, you bought 24 to 27% of all cologne and shoes manufactured in this country. If you stop buying shoes, black women, whoa, whoa. I'm not pointing fingers, man. I tell everybody, man, I am a girl dad, all girl. Listen, I'm a lifetime member of the All Girls Club, only male in the house. Ladies, I feel sexism before you do because I root for my daughters. So I know. At one time, black males, you are 6% of the population. I mean, you were buying 1 out of every 5 pairs of shoes that Nike was manufactured. Now, that's not the problem. Now, you know that I teach. So come to my classroom, and knowing your buying power, how many Nike scholars do I have in my class? None? Well, look, damn it, that's a problem.
It's a problem.
Because every other group leverages that.
Yeah.
It's called leverage. How many young ladies are going to Clark Atlanta on full scholarship, Ferragamo scholar? Got any Ferragamo scholars, man?
I haven't heard of that one. I personally.
How many Chanel scholars? Dr. Cameron, how many Chanel scholars you got in your classroom? None? That's a big problem. How many Coach scholars? Any Coach scholars?
But they all show up wearing the clothes, though.
And I'm not knocking that. I know at one time the average black female, 18 to 35, spent, $124, $127 a month on clothes. So I'm not knocking that. All I'm saying, just be aware of the power that you have. Every other group does it. And they use that to go ahead and rise, among, the wealth gap and the wealth curve. It's not so much, in terms of millionaires. We're focusing on millionaires and blah, blah, blah. But we need to focus not only in the middle class, but the upper middle class. Case in point. This is your case study. Pads down, pencils up. Okay, if you are in the top 1% of white America, that's minimum 8.3 million a year. If you are in the top 1% of black America, that's minimum $3.1 million a year. Then, when you go down, it gets even more stratified, more bifurcated when it goes down. Kimbro, what do you mean? Okay, if you are in the top 5% of black America, if you want to be in the top 5% earning power of black America, you ready for this? $350,000 a year. If you got $350,000 a year, boys and girls, you'll be in the top 5% of black America.
Wow.
Now, you ready for this? 30% of white America, $350,000 above. What's 5% of you is damn near 1/3 of white America. That's called stratified. And we got to focus in on the problem. When you look at all the different ethnic groups, once they escape poverty and go from poverty to middle class, to upward middle, to affluent, every other group, once they escape poverty, they never go back.
Yeah.
No one in the generation never goes back. Once we escape poverty, go from poverty, and go to middle class, that's not, some in our generation, some in our family can actually fall back. I tell that to my students all the time. You got to be on your guard. Okay, so you look at my grandfather and grandmother. My grandfather was a butler. My grandmother was a maid. They worked for a wealthy white family in North Carolina. Well, slowly but surely, we moved up a little bit. What did my mother do for a living? My mother was a nanny. She took care of wealthy white children right there in New Jersey. And as a matter of fact, that's how she met my father. My father was coming back from World War II. Here's a brother who dodged bullets, in Europe in World War II, coming back. And the interesting aspect of it, she worked for a wealthy white family in New Jersey, and they were about to take a vacation out in California. And so they took the train from New Jersey to California. Of course, took my mother. She had to watch the kids even on vacation. And it was on that train, the train stopped, Charles and Michelle, I love you madly, in Enid, Oklahoma to refuel. And who got on that train in Enid, Oklahoma? My father. And they didn't go back to Oklahoma until my college graduation. So we got to be on our guard well, advance. And that's why I said what I said about Pinky Cole. Okay, I've been at Clark, Atlanta, close to 25 years. As soon as I got out there, I came up with this crazy idea. My wife gave me so many different ideas, man. Came up with take a millionaire to lunch. I said, I'm gonna close out my school year. I'm gonna bring in a certifiable millionaire to go ahead and speak to my kids, and I'll spring for lunch. I'll get a sponsor to sponsor lunch. And in a 23, 24 year period, I'm blessed to be in Atlanta. And had all the game changers in Atlanta in my class. For the most part, you name them, they've been in there. Oh. Steve Harvey spoke to my kids. Tyrese Gibson spoke to my kids. Dikembe Mutombo spoke to my kids. Arguably one of the best speakers, one of the best. Janetta Patton. Dr. Kimbro, who's Janetta Patton? Usher's mother. Man, chick was dynamite. And my kids, man, Edwin Peskowitz, owner of the Hawks and Thrashers, spoke to my kids. During the Q&A, one of my students said to Usher's mother, said, "What's the toughest thing you've ever done?" And she looked and said, "The toughest thing I ever done?" I said, yes, Miss Patton, what's the toughest thing you've ever done? She said, "Learning how to cope being the only female black female in the room. And her follow-up question was, explain, translate. She said, every contract that my son ever signed, I negotiated. Bad sister. You know he's part owner of an NBA team. She negotiated that contract. All of his record deals, she negotiated. And of course, Pinky Cole was off the chain. I love Pinky. I love her so much. But that's the way wealth is translated. When you bring the game changers in there and they see, man, they're no different than me, man. They're no different than me, man. Whoa. I remember, the name may not be Ming Lee. Do you know Ming Lee here in Atlanta? Okay, so she spoke. Bad sister. She brought her whole entourage with her. I love her madly, man. And she signed, you know, every program, took every picture. Pinky did the same thing. So one of my students, young ladies, asked Ming Lee, said, when did you know that you had a passion for hair? And she fired back, what makes you think I have a passion for hair? Well, obviously you're doing well in it and you're generating wealth and blah, blah. She said, well, that's not my passion. It's just a vehicle. And she says, well, if hair is not your passion, what is your passion? She said, I want to do what you're doing. And my student said, what am I doing that you want to do? She said, I want to go to school and get my degree in marketing because my goal is to produce, you know, Super Bowl commercials. So what can we learn out of that case study? You never know who's looking. You never know who's looking. Like I said recently, man, go get a suit. Some of the brothers in me, man, Todd Kimbro, no, damn it, go get a suit. You're not 16. You never know who walks up and down this campus. Now, who taught me that? Well, a number of people taught me that. But when Dikembe Mutombo spoke in my class, and he told my students that, you know, he went to Georgetown on an academic scholarship. Folks don't know that. He was there pre-med, academic scholarship. And at the end of his freshman year, John Thompson sees him on campus. And John Thompson, who was coach of Georgetown at the Hoyas at the time, approached him and says, how tall are you? And Kimbro, and he told the story in my class, he said, 7 foot. And he says, you ever play basketball? And he said, no, soccer. He said, you need to come try out for my team. So he tried out for the team, and he says, you know, man, I can give you a scholarship right now if you're serious about this. And he told him, he said, well, if I try out for the team and you place me on the team, I want to be the best defensive player that I can be. So they worked on his defense, okay? So he shared his story with my students, and he said, before we wrap this up, let me tell you something. You're business students, and I know you want to know all about my portfolio. And he says, yes. And he says, yes, I own oil wells in Nigeria. Yes, I own 2 clinics, and I'm building a hospital right now in Africa. Yes, I own 2 schools in Nigeria right now. He says, but that doesn't tell you who I am. He says, the flagship of my portfolio, and this is what Dikembe Mutombo told my students years ago. He said, the flagship of my portfolio, he said, I don't care what hospital you go to in Atlanta. I don't care if you go to Northside. I don't care if you go Piedmont. I don't care if you go to South Fulton in East Point. I don't care if you go, and he would just listen, I don't care if you go to Emory. I don't care if you go to Grady. I don't care if you go to Crawford Long. He said, I don't care whatever hospital you go to in Atlanta. I own the ambulance service in that hospital. He says, that's my flagship. And he says, I'm not patting myself on the back. He said, how did that come about? And he said, I flew back to Nigeria. My mother was sick, and she literally died in my arms. And before my mother took her last breath, she said to me, what will be your legacy? And he told the students, and particularly the men, he said, the 4 years I was at Georgetown, he said, I don't care if I was, you know, in my dormitory studying and I had to run up back on campus to go to the library. I don't care if I was meeting my classmates for a study group and I had to go up on campus. He said, anytime those 4 years I was at Georgetown, if I ever set foot on that campus, I was in a suit and tie. You never know who's looking. And then I went and told the students, I said the same thing happened to Jay-Z. Jay-Z and Biggie Smalls, they approached Bernard Arnault, CEO Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy, says, we can impact your bottom line. And Bernard Arnault, what did he say to Jay-Z? Just a bunch of rappers in baggy jeans and T-shirts. And then he met, Warren Buffett. And what did Buffett tell him? He says, okay, so you just got one vein here, man. You just got, one, wealth stream. You're going to lose out on a whole bunch of deals, man. Folks got to take you serious. How they perceive you is how they will see you. And how they see you, that's how they're going to deal with you.
Ooh,
that's how they're going to deal with you. I'm not dressed like this all the time. If you want to see how I was dressed 2 hours ago, my wife would say, are you ever going to comb your hair? No, not really. Oh, Dr. Kimbro. No, don't call me Dr. Kimbro. This is my summer. Come fall, I'll be doctor all you want. Let me enjoy my summer. Come on, man. Play the game.
So I have a question.
Yes.
So I think it's so awesome to see how you've been a professor for all this time. So you've kind of see the different generations, but also with the impact that you've had on the community and doing all the research. What are some positive and negatives that you've seen with growth within like the generations, like of Black kids, like coming from the different generations?
I have seen.
So what are some
growth.
positive and negatives, because you've been there like firsthand?
I know, man. Boy, yes, that would be a great template, man. Yeah, I've seen the differences, because I even shared like a couple of days ago, you can go to Coca-Cola right now and go up on the C-suite floors, and you might find some individuals there that I've taught got their MBAs working for Coke and everything. And now Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm with Generation Z. But I mean, that's going to happen with any generation. I mean, they look at me, I'm a baby boomer, I'm 71 years old, man, you guys are sticks in the mud. You believe that, you go ahead and get a job and you keep a job and you work there forever for your goal, blah, 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 and this, that, and everything. So there's pluses and minuses with that. And with Generation Z, it's the same thing. I mean, the pluses, very creative. Oh, I love your creativity. I love your creativity and innovation. Number 2. Right there with creativity, I love your can-do attitude. I love it. Don't have to explain it. Let me get out of your way. Just go ahead and do it. Now, there's some negatives with it, okay? A little bit too impulsive so many times. You go ahead and try something that doesn't work. I'm going to do that. No. Go ahead, try it again. Try it again. Try it again. A little bit too impatient sometimes and blah, blah, blah. But that's like anything and everything. There's pluses and minuses. So you put the entire package together. So you just focus on your strengths and don't worry about, your weaknesses. Concentrate on your value add. Concentrate on your area of excellence. Dr. Kimbro, can you come in and speak on this? No, that's really not my purview. Yeah, I could speak on it, but I just try to focus in on my area of excellence. Can you speak on this? No. And what is your area of excellence? Well, number 1 is going to be wealth. It's going to be leadership, excellent communication skills, and that's my swim lane. Let somebody else go do that. Why? Because you never know who's looking. I want to keep my brand strong. Keep your brand strong. Do you even know your area of excellence? Nobody in this room is 16. Maybe over here, man. No one in here is a corn muffin. If you don't know your area of excellence, look, damn it, I need to know why you don't know your area of excellence. What is the number 1 reason why the Lord blew breath in your lungs? You're here for a purpose. And how do I know you're here for a purpose? Well, if you're not here for a purpose, why weren't you born in 1950 like I was? What did my father say to me, man? And look at his generation. No cultural diversity, no EEOC. I mean, here's a black man whose entire life, every day, his entire life, is a man that did nothing every day but catch hell because of the color of his skin. Well, how come I wasn't born in 1914 when he was? Well, the world wasn't ready for me. The world was ready for me. So 1950, Dennis Kimbro, all the stop signs have been removed. All the lights are green. Go for it. So why were you born in 2000 or 1998 or whatever? Because all the stop signs have been removed. All the lights are green. So why are you sitting twiddling your thumbs? If you live that normal life, what is a normal life? 74 to 77 years on earth. Damn it, do the calculus. That's only 30,000 days. Boys and girls, that's 4,000 weeks. We just closed the week. Now you got 3,999. What the hell are you doing? Get on with it. I need to see a sense of urgency. I need to see a bias for action.
Yeah.
Let's go. That's one of the keys to wealth building. And it's no Rubik's Cube. Success always leaves footprints. If you don't know Biggie Small, now you know. Go ask the wealth creators and they'll do it. Why isn't Think and Grow Rich a black choice? Why isn't What Makes the Great great? Why isn't the wealth choice in every black public schools in the country and charter schools? Not because I wrote it. Oh, those committees going to increase sales and blah, blah, blah. Not because I wrote it. It's because your wealth creators are telling you what they did and how you could do it. And don't act like you see it every day. Go back to Malcolm Gladwell. Malcolm Gladwell was on a talk show. And the host said to him, Malcolm, in the few moments that we have left, are there any trends out in society that really have you concerned? And Gladwell paused, and he stroked his face, and he said, yes, there is a trend. And the host said, in the few moments we have left, please tell our viewing audience. And Gladwell says, I'm concerned about the, hundreds of thousands. And then he caught himself. And he says, no, I'm concerned about the millions of black school children who live in communities that they will never see a black man in a suit and tie. That concerns me. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Find your area of excellence and pour your heart and soul into it. And how do you find your area of excellence? You ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, what do I love to do? What do I have a passion for? What can I throw my whole heart and soul into it? What does Steve Harvey tell my students? Career is what you're paid for, but a calling is what you're made for.
Oof.
If I asked you what you do for a living, what would you tell me? Would you tell me that it's work? Would you tell me that it's drudgery? Would you tell me that it's hard? Would you tell me that it's an effort? Would you tell me that it's a slave? Well, hopefully you might tell me that it's a mission. Whoa. And then if you tell me that it's a mission, maybe the word passion will come to the surface. And if you tell me that it's a mission and passion, well, it just might be your ministry. When I walk into that classroom, that's my ministry. What did Henry David Thoreau say? Don't die with your music left in you. If you're not going to listen to Henry David Thoreau, listen to 2 Chainz, Too Short. It's been way too long, time for the whole world to play your song. When I walk into that classroom, well, damn it, they're going to play my song. Now, how did I get that? Well, I interviewed Andy Young, Mr. Ambassador Andy Young. It's in the books. And what did he tell me? I said, Mr. Ambassador, who had the greatest effect on your life? Before I could get the question out, he said, Benjamin Mays. I thought he was going to say Dr. Martin Luther King. He walked hand in hand, side by side with Dr. King. And I said, Mr. Ambassador, I'm not knocking, Dr. Mays. But, I thought you were going to say Martin Luther King. Why Dr. Mays? And he said, because you could always tell when a student at Morehouse was taking a class from Dr. Mays. I said, what do you mean? He said, you can see him running across the quad. I said, why? He said, because Benjamin Mays only had 2 rules in his classroom. Rule number 1, he would always correct your English. And the juniors and seniors at Morehouse would say, man, that's whack. Why is this guy correcting my English? And Dr. Mays would reply, would you rather have me correct your English or a prospective employer correct your English? And then rule number 2, Benjamin Mays said, I don't care on the syllabus. I don't care on the catalog. I don't care on the course book. Class starts at 1 o'clock. If I get here at 12:45, that door is closed. On time is late and early is on time. And late, well, late, damn it, is fired.
Period.
And he made every student the first assignment they had to memorize that old poem. I've only just a minute, 60 seconds in it, force upon me, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it. But I know that I will lose it. I'll suffer if I lose it. Pay account if I abuse it. It's just a tiny little minute, but my life is in it. And I interviewed folks in my books who actually took a class from Dr. Mays, and they recited the poem to me. These are your wealth creators placing all the information in the books. You don't want to buy the book? Don't get the book. I don't care. But man, give it to somebody else. All right, so you come to my study, all right? And I live in Southwest DeKalb, all right? The entire first floor of my house is my study. All right? Far in, there's my computers and everything. I got rows and rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of books. When I'm a sophomore at the University of Oklahoma, I knew exactly what I want to do with my life. I wanted to teach. So I stopped reselling my books at the end of the semester. I kept everything. On the far end, I got my flat screen TV. So you come, my study, I give you the remote control, and there you go ahead and you begin to channel surf. And you might go to one of the financial networks, one of the financial cable stations, Fox Financial News, MSNBC, CNBC News, blah, blah, blah. And you might find an old interview of Steve Jobs being interviewed. You might find Warren Buffett. You might find Bill Gates being, Elon Musk. When's the last time you seen one of your wealth creators being interviewed? Tell me. They tell, yeah. They tell me there is anywhere between 10 to 16 black billionaires. And I've asked my MBAs, name them. Oh, Dr. Kimbro, man. Why don't you know? You know all these folks, why don't you know? How do they earn their billions? What's their value add? Let's talk about their net present value. Let's talk about supply and demand. Every year, every semester, I bring in a financial advisor, teach my kids how to read Wall Street Journal. So this year we had a money manager from one of the banks, and he came in, kids come in, when they come in, the morning edition of Wall Street Journal is on their desk. So he teaches them, okay, of course you're gonna read the cover, you're gonna read first page. I said, let's go to money and investing, okay? Put it down, goes to money investing. So turn to page 3 on money and investing. And that morning, there was an interesting article about Steve Jobs and what he was doing, you know, in terms of the iPhone and this and that. So there was this short article, and he read the article, and the money manager says, okay, put your newspapers down. Anybody got any ideas? Because Jobs is saying he's going to do ABC, XYZ, 1, 2, 3. Anybody come up with an idea on which Jobs could really impact his bottom line? Did anybody see an opportunity in this flux that he's not capitalizing on? And I had a couple of students came up with great ideas. He said, rather than doing that, I would go ahead and do this and blah, 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 and this, that, and that. And the financial advisor said, those are great ideas. Now everybody look at your watch. You don't have a watch, look at your cell phone. Tell me the time right now. And then look at the watch and look at the cell phone. Oh man, it is, 10:50 in the morning, blah, blah, blah. He says, yeah. He says, right now it is such and such time over in Beijing. There's a school, a school right there in Beijing, and they're doing the same thing you're doing right now, and they got the same idea that you have, and right now you're a half a day behind. How you gonna make up that time? You're half a day behind. You're already behind. How you gonna close the gap? So these are your wealth creators. Okay, so when I wrote the wealth choice, all right, it took me about 18 months just to come up with the survey. Not only to come up with the survey, but to beta test the survey. So there I am, and at the time I was teaching business communication to my MBAs. And we're going there, we're getting ready to dive into the case. Well, before we're diving into the case, one of my students says, Dr. Kimbro, you working on any new books and new material? And I said, yeah. I said, what are you working on? I said, I'm working on a book on black millionaires. You are? I said, yeah. He said, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to interview and survey and blah, blah, blah. As a matter of fact, I'm finishing up my survey right now. And then another one said, well, can we see the survey? And I'm saying, yeah, but come on, man, let's dive into this case. No. Can we see the survey? So I brought the survey in, classes on Monday and Wednesday, and the next class I brought it in, and I said, all right, you guys want to do something? Take a look at the survey. Tell me any questions that I need to ask them, blah, blah, blah. And so I really gave everybody in the class, blah, 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 and they came back, and they told me, and I threw it out there, got a couple of millionaires to go ahead and complete it, and then I beta tested it. I gave it to several millionaires and asked them, am I asking the right questions? Anything need to be deleted? Blah, blah. They said, no, you spot on, blah, blah, blah. Because it was divided into 4 sections. And I wasn't so worried about the first section was on demographics. All right, Census Bureau calls you black. Are you really West Indian? Are you indigenous African?